It's quite sad, isn't it? You can imagine, like, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Corey Wren. Vegan feminist, vegan sociologist, vegan witch, vegan all of the above. This video is going to continue my series on color correspondences. And I thought today would be a really good time to introduce the mother of all candle colors. The little humble white candle. So white is probably the go-to. If you are someone who is a minimalist, you don't want to have all the colors like I do, like I can't hear me everything. If you just want a little bit to see if this is really your thing, or you're trying to keep down on the clutter, or whatever maybe, white is the candle to go with. So I've talked about this in the video where I discussed the color black, specifically candle wax that's black. First off, I want to be very clear that when I talk about the spiritual and the symbolic meanings associated with white, specifically white candles, we want to be cognizant of the fact that historically that has been used very problematically against people of color, basically, and people of the colonies, etc., etc. So when we're talking about the symbolism of the color white, we want to be thinking mindfully about that. I think scientifically, the thing that makes white interesting, the actual color, not the people, is that it reflects color, right? So in that way, it is without color, whereas black absorbs all the colors, and although it has been stereotyped as being quite evil, black is actually kind of all-powerful because it contains everything, whereas white is reflecting everything. So it's kind of an interesting sort of yin and yang there with white and black. So if you were to pick up any two colors, it would be those two. Just one, maybe start with white. But because white reflects everything, it has been used in witchcraft as a catch-all. So if you don't have all the color candles, you can replace with white or just use white. So when I was younger, when I was a kid and I was doing candle magic, grew up very, very poor. Well, first off, the trick was go to the dollar store, the Dollar General, which is no longer dollar anything anymore with inflation. But back then, you could go and you can get the little votive candles, scented votive candles, 4 for $1. And oftentimes I could, like, save up my lunch money and get a few candles. It's actually quite sad thinking about that, because even that was too expensive for me growing up. But also, I don't know that those would be vegan. So also have to be careful of that. The cheapo candles, you have to be careful of what's their origin and contents. Anyway, so you can use white if you're on a budget, if you're trying to minimalize, if you just want to be succinct, whatever it may be. But really, white is more than just a filler candle color. White is associated, and here's all the things I said to take with a pinch of salt. It's associated with purity, peace, goodness. Yeah, it's the all-around good vibes, happy candle. Yeah, and also otherworldly in a way, isn't it? Because it's a light into the darkness, and the whiteness amplifies that. So there's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can do with the white candles. First off, like I said, you can get them cheaply in the dollar store, or the Poundland, as they call it here in the UK. The tea lights, you can get those really cheaply as well. I'm not just a vegan. I also have issues with the throwaway culture. I hate these because of the tin that I don't think you can really recycle, because there's always wax residue when you finish these. They do, I've seen them online, they do sell the ones that are without the containers, or you can reuse containers. Thus far, I've only found those, the wax quality is really poor, and it melts unevenly and very quickly, and it's not useful, unfortunately. But I guess what I mean here is that you can look around and shop around and see what you can find. Oftentimes it's very easy to find these vegan, but the throwaway stuff really annoys me. I don't like that. Alternatively, You can get the little vegan spell candle kits or whatever. These are extremely easy to find. There's a, what do you call it? It's like I call it the hippie store, but it's called Siesta. There's a hippie store right down the street on my block, actually, that sells incense and tapestries and wood instruments and also spell candles, so I can get them there and shop local. These are also found online just about everywhere, and as you can see, really not that expensive. But I like these because I can recycle most of it. There's a little bit of plastic here that is unnecessary and annoying, but the paper can be recycled, and there's the candles themselves don't have any kind of metal or plastic attached to them. So I like that. Alternatively, I can also, depending on the type of ritual or spell work you want to do, you can also go with the big boys. So let me first explain like different candles. Well, because white, there's so many different types of white ones. I can go into more detail with the white ones, but when I get the tea lights, I oftentimes will put these in the windowsill, or when I'm doing a house cleansing. A lot of house cleansing spells and rituals call for lighting a candle in each and every room. Well, that gets expensive and also dangerous if you have like a long burning candle. But these burn for a couple, 2-3 hours, and then they go out and life goes on. Also have some cool candle holders in various shapes that these are nice for when you have guests over or if it's a special occasion. Don't really use these so much in ritual work because they're a bit mundane. These are like the spell candles, that's what they're made for. I will use these if I'm doing like spell work that requires, saying something, following the moon patterns, multiple days involved, etc. And I've said this in another video, but with these, you can buy special holders for these, but I can't be asked. So what I do is I just light the candle to the flame to the bottom of it, and a little bit will drip off, and you can use that dripped wax to stick it in place. So I just use a saucer usually to do that. So those are probably easiest for spell work. But usually if you're going all the way with your witchy ways, you want to also have altar candles. And those should typically, not always, but typically be white because they're all purpose, as I said earlier. And I use the bigger boys from Glastonbury. I can't remember the dimensions on this. And I love the potter who does this. I can't remember her name, but I bought these in Glastonbury. I've also seen these in Stonehenge and Avebury, but I don't know if they were, I don't know if that's what these were intended for, but this is what I use them for, my altar candles. But yeah, this is long burning, and I only burn these when I'm doing special rituals where you call the circle and all that kind of stuff. I don't burn these on everyday occasions, because that's also very important. You have to protect the magic of it, right? If you burn it for anything all the time, what's the point? That's what these are for, everyday candles. So there's that. And then this is my special treat to myself. I've said in another video on my color correspondence when I was talking about purple. Typically I have purple as my sort of altar candle. I like to have, like, my altar candle's not getting lit unless it's a special occasion, and then I have colored altar candles as well that I change throughout the seasons to coordinate. But typically I'll just have a regular altar candle that's there to be freely burned when I need just general inspiration or pick me up. So if I'm working in the morning especially, I like to do it, or in the evening, and I'll light a candle. Or if I have guests over and we're having a nice time like that, I'll light the candle for special occasions like that. So, you're creating your own magic. Anyway, usually purple, but I have gone through so many of these. This is also, I feel like I should get some kind of, what's the word? They should do some advertising with me. Paid advertising, because I'm obsessed with Star Child, right? And they do lots of cool, it's not focusing. Don't know how to make it focus. They do lots of cool astrological candles and moon phase candles and blah, blah, blah. I'm not really into the astrology stuff, but I like this peace candle, and it is, magically infused, they say. And you use it for meditation and global understanding. but it's just called peace candle, and I like that. So especially for me as a vegan, and you know, dealing with all the horrible stuff in the world and trying to just maintain some sanity and not fall into a pit of despair, which is so easy to do in the line of work that I'm in. I like the peace candle. So again, it's very important that it's white, right? Because white is the color of peace. It says it's imbrued with lots of herbs and things, but actually, I don't think it has a smell at all, really. It's just a candle. But just goes to show there's all kinds of varieties and variants of the white candle that can be used. Now, I wanted to also talk about vegan uses. And by the way, they claim that this is vegan. Most I have another video on veganism and candles, so I'll save that for then. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about today as far as using a white candle in practice is there are times when I enter moments of crisis when the work that I'm doing, and you never know when it's going to happen. You can predict for it and try to protect yourself, but it will come at you from the most unexpected places. I think Twitter's X, whatever it's called now, I had to get off of there because you cannot control the feed. And because they know the feed, the algorithm knows that I'm vegan, it will send me some horrible, horrible videos that I don't need to see because I'm already vegan, and it will really disturb me. So sometimes the algorithm will throw something at me, or I'm doing research for something and not at all expect to find horrible descriptions of animal exploitation. And then I do. And it's moments of crisis and you can't predict them. So when that happens, or I hear the news or something and it's just, you know, you get knocked out of your equilibrium. Like I will probably do a whole video on what it means to manage this horrible information and practice self-care and protection. But anyway, when it does happen, there are things that you can do. And one of the things that I like to do is to light a candle. And also, if you ever have a situation when a friend is in distress, a friend has reached out for you for help or needs a little help, or someone is sick, someone's dying, someone has died, you're remembering someone who's died, their spirit's feeling really strong with you, light a candle. And it's interesting, it just seems kind of self-explanatory, right? But I was told this and it just stuck with me. It was many years ago. My best friend was very ill and suffering. And I suffered very much. So after that, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, was surviving that, because he was my best friend. And really, I think at that time in his life, it was really his only close friend. So it was a really heavy burden for me after it happened. And when I moved to New Jersey, I had to move to New Jersey, this is story time, but I moved to New Jersey with my first full-time teaching gig, and I didn't really settle in well, ever. And I'm so glad to be out of there. No offense if you're from there, but I'm from Appalachia, and it just was not my scene, in New York City and all that. But I started going to yoga classes. I had never done yoga classes before. I had started doing yoga classes online with Yoga with Adrienne, the OG Yoga with Adrienne, like when she first started. That's when I found her, which is kind of sweet because we're the same age as well, and it's nice to see like she's expanded over the years. Anyway, what a great service she did to me, and she helped me through some really tough times after that death. And I needed something. I had to like get in my body, but getting in your body can be scary because you have to sit with things, don't you? Long story short, there's this woman who was in the yoga. I was doing all the yoga classes because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm some hick from Virginia, and I was doing all of them to see what they were. And in one of them, it started off with a psychic. And the psychic went around the room and wasn't a great psychic. And I'm not really a believer in that stuff. I find it extremely interesting and very, very fun. But also, I think it's a little bit of entertainment. Whatever. You know, if you're into it, fine. But for me, I'm a bit too much of a scientist for that. However, that doesn't mean you can't find magic in the mundane. So she came around and was doing a little psychic reading for everyone, and I was like so excited. I was so excited when she said she's going to do that. Yeah. And she came around and like, I don't know, she said there's some kind of presence around you, and of course I ended up telling her what it was because that's how psychics work. You kind of feed them bits and then they go with it. Which is fine. Like, I just want to go play with the magic of it. I don't care. But she said, she said to me, you need to go home. That presence is lurking around you, and you need to go home and light a candle for him in the window. And she didn't explain anything about it, why to do that or whatever. And since then, I've been paying attention to the sort of spiritual purposes of candles, and lighting a candle in the window is a very, very old practice, isn't it? And so even in, we're all dealing with human traumas and human grief and human disappointments and sicknesses and illnesses and whatever else. But as vegans, we're really dealing with that on a constant basis. But whoever puts a candle in the window for animals? I think that should be us. And so I do like to do that. I don't do it every day. I wish that if I had the wherewithal and the finances, probably actually not that great to have all that burned soy in the air, but whatever. But I think doing it every once in a while when you really feel the need to do it is a sweet thing that you can do, even if it just, and you don't really believe in the spiritual, psychic, whatever, even if it just stops with you. I think it's even doing you a good service to stop and remember and do something. It sort of reminds me of those folks who they find dead animals in the wilderness, or who've been discarded from factory farming or laboratories, and they give them a proper funeral. They dress them or adorn them with flowers and say something nice before they bury them, or whatever they do with them. I don't know. They might just leave them there to go back to nature. But what does that do for the animal? Not much, because the animal's dead. But it does do something for us, because it's a distressing thing to live vegan in the world when you live as a personal island. And you have this kind of cognitive awareness of one, as Mary Daly would say, a radical feminist. How do you deal with that? These are some things that we can do to help us navigate that. And if you do happen to be someone who believes that energy goes out and is received, all the more reason to do it. When you're burning your white candle, you can always just burn it as it is, obviously, but if you want to add a little bit extra, which I like to do sometimes, I've explained this in another video, but I can repeat it here. One of the things you can do is you can take your candle and rub it lightly with oil of some sort, even if it's just regular old olive oil. But typically, I don't have any on my desk right now. Ooh, what's this? Got some Australian essential oils. Went to Australia for my 40th birthday last year. This is actually pretty handy dandy. Wow, because that's a perfect little mist. Let's try it out. It's cardamom, cedarwood, and vetiver. Very summery. So anyway, you put a light layer of oil there, and then you will want to dab some herbs on it. But you can't go too wild with that, because if you put too much on there, it will make the candle burn really fast, and it will just burn in a big flame, not a candle flame, but because they're flammable, and you've added oil, so you got to be careful. But a little bit, and it adds a little bit extra magical infusion, right? So I've got scented oils with various, these were randomly chosen, but you can choose essential oils with specific meanings, and then add herbs with specific meanings. With a white candle, when we're looking at peace, this is for non-human animals especially, I would recommend, honestly, it's whatever your heart tells you, and there's so many different books on herbology and sacred witchy meanings of herbs, but I like to learn that, but to an extent you also have to kind of follow your gut and what makes sense to you, because what are symbols? Symbols are shared meanings, and sometimes meanings mean something different to you. Anyway, the first one I have here that I thought might be fun to use, that I often like to use, is underrated, but a common one. Oh, it smells so lovely. Ivy. Ivy. So this is just crumbled up dried ivy. This came from, I think, Star Child in Glastonbury. Now, normally you could roll it in a dish, but if I do it this way, it's not gonna spill everywhere. Just put it back in the jar. Okay. I'm being very frugal because I don't want it to go wild on me. And then the other thing that you can do And this is what normally I do, is I don't dress it like that. I actually just put it in a dish and glue it to the dish and then sprinkle herbs around it. And I think that looks quite lovely. And it's a potpourri. So again, if we're doing a peace candle, if we're doing a candle to bring light in dark spaces and dark, horrible laboratories and horrific feedlots and live export trucks and all that nasty crap, let's send some good peaceful vibes with lavender. It's quite sad, isn't it? You can imagine, like, it smells like a meadow where most of these animals should be, not in this horrible man-made hellholes. So yeah, I would sprinkle this around the dish that the candle is sitting in liberally because it smells good. And another choice that I'd often make for a peace candle, a white peace candle for non-human animals, is good old standby of rose. Ugh, that's so good. Rose is easy to find. I'm so lucky that I live in city center Canterbury, because right outside my local shop, in America you would call them bodegas or convenience stores. I don't know what they're called here. Corner shop, I guess. But my corner shop right out here is, it's a Turkish-Iranian shop. So they sell a lot of this kind of Middle Eastern things. So giant old thing of rose petals or rose water. But again, what's rose? Rose symbolizes love, doesn't it? So I think that'd also be sweet to sprinkle around a peace candle for the animals. So there's that. So you can do both. You can dress your candle. You can also put herbs around it. You can put essential oils. And then, yeah, pop it on your altar, pop it in the window, pop it on your desk while you're working. Yeah. And then when you're done with when you're done with the herbs, sometimes I'll build up, I'll add more to them, especially in springtime when I have fresh flower leaves, petals that smell really nice, I'll let them pull up. But eventually, if the wax gets down into it, it's kind of ruined, and then you just toss it. And there's a whole bunch of rules in witchcraft about how you dispose properly of these things. But practically speaking, because I live in city center, it probably just goes in my compost and back into my witchy garden, where we will meet again in the growing of great things. So that's my big spiel today on white candles. And I talked a little bit longer today about white candles because, like I said, they're the sort of catch-all. They're the most ubiquitous. They're the most easy to get. They can be used for so many different things, and they have greater symbolic meaning. Just make sure they're vegan. Make sure that they are safe to burn. And put a light in the window.